Welcome back, everybody, to Dungeon Brew. John and I are continuing our series on Monsters Tactics. Today we're going to be talking about Hobgoblins. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Dungeon Brew.
Welcome back, everybody, to Dungeon Brew. John and I are going to be talking about Hobgoblins today for our Monster Tactics video. This is just how you run the tactics for Hobgoblins, these intelligent, disciplined, organized creatures. Before we get started, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button to help us grow. John, why don't you dive us right in how Hobgoblins should be utilized on the battlefield?
Hobgoblins are probably one of my most favorite humanoid creatures to use, just because, like you said, they're intelligent, they're disciplined, they're tactical. They have larger strategies that extend beyond kill this now and eat food or raid here or do whatever. They usually have larger strategic goals for things that they want to do. And if you want to run a game or a campaign or even just like an arc that focuses heavily on tactical warfare, Hobgoblins are where it's at. Just bar none, they're there. And so for me, I think that's a lot of fun to be able to actually employ in the game in ways that the players can feel both intimidated by the technical aspects of it, but they also can feel very accomplished when they overcome or defeat or otherwise get around the tactics that the Hobgoblins are employing.
Yeah, I hope this doesn't come across as being offensive, but the Hobgoblins to me are like that one particular monster class that doesn't always feel like a monster class. It allows you to kind of touch on almost playing one of the like mini humanoid characters that you might have within your campaign without them being fully human. And that's exciting to me because I know that I lean heavily onto humans as enemies and don't always consider Hobgoblins. And I think that is a similar thing that I see throughout many of like the adventures and campaigns that I watch, online, that people just don't lean into the Hobgoblin as much as they should to have that monster class that is able to utilize tactical play at that level.
Right. So, I feel like we should just get right into it because there's like their playbook for what they will do is significant. And so I don't want to waste time with a bunch of other nonsense here. So if there's something in the playbook, they'll use it. They're not ones that are willing to rush in and just try and murder as many people as they can or do whatever just for the sake of honor, the way that an orc is. They are not cowards in the way that goblins or kobolds are. They are aggressive when they need to be aggressive. They're defensive when they need to be defensive. They make use of specific tactics in order to accomplish a goal because they're more interested in the strategy to win the war than they are to win the battle. They have a larger picture, I think, in mind whenever they start their campaigns than most other creatures do. It is not about the immediate rewards. It is about the long-term goals and what they can accomplish by staying true to the discipline and the training that they have received.
And the interesting thing about Hobgoblins that differs them from other monsters we've talked about so far is that they're willing to include other goblinoid creatures like orcs and goblins, in their ranks. They will hire them, they will utilize them, they'll strategically place them in order to accomplish their goals to win that war. They understand how these other monsters fight, and so they use that to their advantage. Am I wrong in that?
No, not at all. That's exactly right. They're going to go, okay, we want... we're starting a campaign against this human settlement, this large city. So we're going to have goblins on the roads to waylay their supply lines because goblins are great at ambushing. They're great at making sure that they can get in there and get out, and they're not going to get caught. We're going to use the orcs to raid villages, or we're going to use the orcs as our shock troops, so that when we're ready to actually enter into battle, the orcs are the ones who go in and intimidate, and then they're the ones who are just going to go in and try and break through in the first assault to smash through the enemy lines, because they're very good at that. The Hobgoblins understand these things, and they employ the monsters not only in the way that the monsters prefer to fight, but it's also what they're good at. And so there's no reason for them to try and use them in any way that they're not proficient. It's like, I understand the orc is great at intimidating and just breaking through enemy ranks. That's what they're going to get to do. And so to some degree, the orcs and the goblins and the various other monstrous races that they work with don't mind fighting for the hobgoblins, because the hobgoblins win. And the hobgoblins also are very good at letting the monsters fight in the way that they want to fight to begin with. So talking about some specific things. So we're talking about a party engaging maybe with hobgoblins. They're going to understand very simple tactics, intuitively. Things like flanking, surrounding their enemies, cutting off one ally from another ally in meaningful ways. They're going to target the most dangerous individuals on the battlefield. So if you have an archer who's just picking people away, the commander is going to send several hobgoblins over there to interfere with that ranged individual's ability to just sit there and blink away. They're not going to allow that to occur for more than one round. It happens, and then they go, double move, get on top of him. So they're going to be deploying troops towards the ranged attacker. There is there's a magic user who is making use of spells that are breaking the lines, doing whatever. Again, they're deploying people to immediately go and deal with him. When it comes to things like the fighters and the barbarians, things like that are hard hitters, they put their shielded, heavy duty, hard to hit troops in front of them. So because they're going to be able to withstand the attacks, they're going to form a shield wall, stand in front, surround that individual who is the most dangerous physical or melee combatant on the field, and they're going to basically just lock them down, stop their mobility, keep them from being able to engage with anybody else, keep them from being able to retreat if possible. And then they also get on top of the healer. As soon as they identify who is going to be able to heal or cure, they're immediately on top of them. So they are separating, and they're dividing their ranks in order to be able to accomplish certain things, but they're doing it with specific purpose. If there's one individual who is more deadly or more dangerous to their success in that battle, that is who they're going to target. They're not going to get distracted by nonsense, I want to say, or their own personal motivations when it comes to the battle. It all comes down to winning.
And I want to reiterate that those instructions and that information is coming down from a commander level or whoever's high ranking on the battlefield, directing the other hobgoblins into movement to be the most effective. And while you're talking about the importance of their strategies to assault their enemy, they're also very specific in their defensive strategies, and they have the capacity to understand when it's in their best interest to back out of a battle or to retreat or to come back to another location where they can regroup and re-engage with the enemy.
Yes.
And that is going to come from a place of intellect. It's not, and I understand there can be morale failure. If certain events happen on the battlefield. But if your commander recognizes that he's being threatened or he's taking on fire or that he may fall in battle, he may be utilizing some sort of strategic retreat to back out of that engagement, to solidify their ranks and their formation before re-engaging again. It's a very intellectual way, I think, of looking at their engagement with the enemy that differs from the others. It's not like we're running because we're terrified. It's we're running because we're losing on the scales of battle.
Right. And they will make use of the same tactics the goblins do. They'll do a feigned retreat back to a better position. They'll retreat back to reinforcements. They'll retreat back to a less assailable position. Whatever it is, they will make use of that. Speaking of which, the commander is not going to be the same way as an orc. He's not going to just fight to the death for honor. He's not going to try and seek out the biggest, baddest person on the battlefield in order to try and go toe-to-toe with them. He understands the importance of the ranking system. He understands the importance of his troops, and he understands it's important for him to remain alive and on the battlefield to issue orders. So oftentimes the commander actually stands back and does not engage specifically in combat, or when he engages in combat, he's engaging with purpose. So he goes, my troops have their barbarian locked down. I don't need to engage with the barbarian. I need to go target the druid who is currently healing the barbarian. Or I need to make sure that I'm directing my archers to fire on the mage who's continuing to cast spells. And they're just going to be able to, pincushion him. So he's going to continue to issue orders and make sure that things are operating the way that they should be operating on the battlefield.
I also want to kind of point out that hobgoblins, unlike many of the other creatures we've talked about, whether it be the gnolls or the orcs, aren't going to be fighting to the death.
Right.
And not necessarily to their death. They're not going to be fighting to necessarily always kill their enemy either. So if you're wanting to set up a campaign situation where your characters are being captured or interrogated, maybe they're mercenaries being sent in, to eliminate enemies in a region, and the hobgoblins come up on them and recognize them as being mercenaries, they may knock them out and capture them and interrogate them for more information about who they're fighting instead of just killing them outright.
Yes.
Whereas some of the other monsters we've talked about would probably go towards the slaughter unless they have maybe directions or orders from a hobgoblin commander telling them not to do that.
Yeah, they would have to have some ulterior motive, but generally speaking, hobgoblins are interested in intelligence. They're going to try and gather as much intelligence as they possibly can to learn about their enemies, and that's because they're good at counter tactics and they're good at adaptation. They're good at realizing that this enemy likes to employ their cavalry on the battlefield, so we're going to make sure that we have our shields and our pikes ready. We're going to form a shieldtron, and they're just going to break themselves on our shields, and there's nothing that they can do about it, because that's all that they want to do. They're not going to make the mistake of trying to countercharge the cavalry and lose all of their men. They're going to hold the orcs in reserve off in the forest to the left, so that after the cavalry charges out against their shield wall, the orcs are able to grab the flank of the archers that are no longer protected. Like, those are the types of things that they think about. They put things in motion in advance in order to be able to win battles.
And I do want to, I don't have a whole lot more than, there's a lot we can talk about with hobgoblins, but we could be here for an hour. But one of the things that I want to make sure that we do pull in here is recognizing that if you have your players attacking a hobgoblin structure, fortress, stronghold, the same types of things that you're talking about are going to be reflected in that stronghold too.
Right.
You're going to have watchtowers, you're going to have fortifications. It's going to be very organized and structured and disciplined in how they are set up. So it is really a challenge to overcome that, which may differ from some of the other monsters we've talked about prior. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, you're not going to find the lazy orc or the lazy orc, lazy goblin sleeping at their watch. You're not going to find that on a hobgoblin outpost. They're going to have a horn at their side, and the moment that anything goes awry, they're going to blow their horn, because they're going to alert the entire camp that somebody is trying to break into the camp. I would look at traditional medieval militaristic fortifications to get inspiration for the way that the hobgoblin fort should be structured and put together. They're going to have baileys. They're going to have earthen embankments. They're going to have their I'm losing my mind on it, but the vertical wooden stakes.
Palisades,
thank you. They're going to have those things in place, and they're going to continue to advance and develop and make them better. It's not like, it's as good as it gets, we're just going to leave it. There is always a leveled hierarchy of first this is done, then this is done, then this is done when it comes to defenses, and that list is almost endless, because it can always be improved, and they're always interested in securing their fortifications to the best of their ability.
Yeah. I don't know that I want to go into a whole lot more, but I imagine we can keep jumping through different strategic options.
Yes.
Is there any highlights you want to hit before we end today's video?
I don't think that there's a whole lot with it. I like I said, if there is a playbook when it comes to strategic battle or tactical battle, it's there for them. They're going to use terrain. They're going to use their ability to move. They're going to use their formations. They're going to flank. They're going to, use archers the way archers should be used. They're going to use cavalry the way cavalry should be used. They don't do stupid things for no reason. I will say they're not perfect. So there should be holes in their strategy. There should be gaps. There should be lapses, because they're still not human, but humanoid. They're going to make mistakes. So allow them to make mistakes. Don't make it perfect, and allow your player characters to roll checks to identify those holes so that they can capitalize on them, so that you can really make this interesting in terms of gameplay.
I just have to really say I appreciate you adding that there at the end, because not all of us are military strategic geniuses, and the players that play are not either. So having them roll checks for intelligence and then pointing out the things for the holes that you set up for them can be very helpful for them to overcome battles that otherwise seem to be impossible to overcome.
Exactly.
All right, thanks you guys again for hanging out with us here on Dungeon Brew. Let us know in the comments how you've used hobgoblins, how you appreciate using them, maybe some great stories you have about when you have fought them as a player character. And otherwise, I guess we'll see you next time. Also, before I forget, leave us some comments about other monster tactics you would like to see us explore and talk about if you're interested. We'll see you next time.
Dungeon Brew.